Now, pop star Sophie Ellis-Bextor revealed at the weekend that she was raped at the age of 17 by a man several years older than her. She said the way rape was talked about at the time wasn't to do with consent. It was something you associated with aggression. All that happened, that I wasn't listened to. Of the two people there, one said yes and the other said no. And the yes person did it anyway. Sophie is now a mother to 5 boys, and she says that she has introduced the concept of consent pretty early with her sons. And Judi, you know, this is something I know you feel quite strongly about, because Sophie was saying at that time, rape was only associated with something very violent, you know, being attacked in the street or something. Nobody talked about it could be...
Yeah.
Definitely. An intimate moment, and not violent, but still rape.
Yeah, I think, you know, how we see things, how it's portrayed, whether it's by a story, whether it's by a book or a film, there's always that element of violent or the alley or something. And unfortunately as well, there's always that element, that shame, that unfortunately sometimes is brought onto the victim, and some people call themselves survivors, when, you know, oh, where was you? Or how late was it? What was you drinking? What was you wearing? And the basis of rape, what people need to understand, is violation. And that can take place in any form, whether it is in an aggressive way, whether it is even within a relationship or a marriage, that you've said no. It doesn't have to be that it's going to be just a violent situation or someone you don't know. But the fact that you've said no, and, you know, it's about power and about manipulation, and that is not always expressed in quite a grandeur kind of way. And this is what we need to take into hand. And it's really sad, and I think there's probably a high percentage of people, women, men and they, who might look back on their sexual encounters and realise that they've been in a situation that they have been raped, because they've been in that time where they've said no and the other person has continued, and maybe they haven't left the situation, they've still stayed there, but because they've either been manipulated or felt fearful or didn't have anywhere else to go or didn't feel like anyone would listen to them because they was in a relationship with this person or they have been seen with them before.
I mean, she used those words, Jane, didn't she? You know, I wasn't listened to.
Yeah.
Wasn't listened to. And that's the crux, I suppose, isn't it?
And it's interesting what she said about that, you know, she's got 5 boys. Because I was reading this really interesting research which makes actual great sense when you look at it, where they say, you know, don't talk to your son, they talk about sons in particular, don't talk to them about sex. Talk to them about romance, talk to them about relationships, talk to them about the funny feeling in the pit of the stomach when you meet somebody, how your brain turns to mush when that special person, you know, and they're saying that actually we've got this sort of, we currently sanction the stereotype of this sort of sex-obsessed teenage boy who places his friends at the centre of his world and discards sexual partners like takeaway coffee cups. Toxic masculinity, which this is, does teenage boys a disservice. The research shows that teenage boys want information about relationships, actually, and not tips on how to pick up a girl or a partner. And I think that's really important because sex education in school, very largely, not all schools, but it does focus on how not to get pregnant, how not to get a sexually transmitted disease, and it doesn't so much focus on the relationship side, the consent side. I mean, I think with so much online pornography that they're dealing with,
pornography,
you know, it's more important than ever.
Has a huge impact on how young boys, young men are viewed.
And they're probably terrified. When they see that, they must be terrified, thinking, you know, how do I approach a relationship with a girl that I like?
I mean, I talked to Jack about consent, and that a lot of our conversations, because teenagers hate you talking about anything sexual anyway. It's very, you know, they say, talk to your kids. It's quite difficult sometimes. They go, yeah, all right, Mum. But normally our conversations came from a newspaper article or something, and we were listening to the radio. It was the news, and there was a rape case, and he asked me, what's rape? You know, and in that moment, I was like, I have to be so measured what I say here. And it did lead into a conversation about consent. You know, that somebody says no, whatever stage you are at on that date or in that relationship or in that moment, if somebody says no, you stop. You know, it doesn't matter what you think about their decision, but you stop. I mean, your boy's probably, well, one of them is, what, nearly 16, is he?
He's reaching 16, yeah. I mean,
have you had that conversation?
Like you said, Jane, I think it's about just teaching every child to be considerate of other people's feelings, to show respect and kindness. And would I like to be treated like that? You know, put yourself in their position. So it's about just, you know, being kind and listening to the other person. And what I think is a bit strange, really, is the introduction of alcohol at the age of 16, where it's legal to have a drink in a bar with an adult. And at that same age, you're able to have sex. Combining those two, I think that could be quite lethal, you know. Making any decisions with the influence of alcohol is bad. That's why you can't drive. That's why you shouldn't have an argument when you've had a drink. It's you know, it's all those things that have got to come into
the other thing the research said, sorry to
consideration.
interrupt you, the other thing the research said, which I thought was really interesting, is that all these sex education things assume that girls are the gatekeepers of sex. And they're actually underestimating the emotional capacity of boys.
Yeah. Listen, it's such a huge subject, you know, and one that we discuss often on here, and I'm sure we will again. And please let us know your thoughts on that as well. And if you have been affected by anything that we have just discussed there, please go onto our website where you can find lots of help and support.